The React context is a built-in way to distribute data seamlessly across your application. Let's walk through an example of how it works. Here's a site. It's a dashboard for your team that lists the people and some information about them. Clicking on one of the people toggles a modal that shows more specific information about them. From a code perspective, the outermost component is the team dashboard. It has a people table, which receives a list of people as properties. People table creates a person row for each person it receives. Person row shows the information and also has an on-click callback that triggers the person modal, which looks like this. Suppose a new feature comes into the backlog that asks for the ability to remove a person through the modal. Imagining the components as a graph, implementing this feature means we would have to be able to, from here, remove person from the state that's here. My go-to move in this situation was always to define a callback and pass it from component to component. Sometimes this is good enough, but it doesn't scale well. Every component we add as an abstraction between team dashboard and person modal will have to get remove person as a property. It would make more sense if each of the components had a reason to remove people, but they don't. They're just playing hot potato with the callback. A component that knows too much about another component has a high risk of being affected by changes in that component. Consider a situation where we would have to change the signature of remove person. What if instead of passing a person directly, we wanted to only pass the ID? Our components are tightly coupled to the person signature of remove person. The change to number from person would then have to be done here, here, and here. Fortunately, React provides us with a framework to decouple our components in this kind of situation called the context. It allows us to centrally store some information and update our components whenever it changes. A context has these parts. First, we define the structure of the state it holds. In our case, the state consists of two things, a list of people and a remove person function. The context, which is created by using createContext with the state type. It receives a default value that we define, in our case, an empty list and an empty callback. Next is the provider, which gets its name because it provides the state to its children components. That'll make more sense in a minute. For now, it looks like any other component that you would expect to wrap another component. The top contains the state, a list of people, and the function for removing one, and then we wrap the children property in context.provider. It has a value property. Whatever is passed in there is the state that's propagated to the children. We can't start using it just yet. If you were to try and use the context now, it wouldn't show any values and it wouldn't update either. This is because the state isn't being provided to the components. For all this to work, we need to go up to our app.tsx and wrap team dashboard in team provider. The state in the provider is now available to any of the children components. After we have all this, we can start using the context. However, I like to include a hook with my context for easy usage. Instead of having this everywhere I want to access the people, I can just call useTeam. Okay, let's go back and clean up our components. First, we can delete people and remove person from everywhere that doesn't need it. People table accesses the list of people in the context through the useTeam hook. Person still gets passed to each person row. Person modal gets remove person from useTeam. This is the real magic of the context. Everywhere that's using people from the context will re-render every time people changes. That means when we use remove person in people modal, the list of people in people table will update automatically. Now, this example might not be super compelling. The nesting of the components is low, so we're not passing around remove person that much. But if the component graph were more like this, passing remove person through every component to get to its destination would start to hurt. The React context makes managing state in our application simple and clear, while letting us keep the coupling of our components low.